Hello and welcome. My name's Melissa Porter.
And my name's Nick Freeman.
Welcome to The Life Coach.
And the lawyer.
Join us as together we tackle your toughest problems using our unique combination of wisdom and experience.
Hello.
Hi, Betty. Is this Betty?
Hello.
Hello, Betty. It's Melissa Porter and Nick Freeman, Life Coach and the lawyer.
Hi, Betty. How are you?
Welcome to the studio.
Hello.
We hear that you've got a little bit of a conundrum. What's your conundrum?
Navigating co-parenting and all that entails.
Are you finding it stressful?
It has its moments, but on the whole, there's been a huge learning experience since the separation, where actually I find that I'm actually getting to know my ex-partner, and I didn't actually know him before. So I get surprised by things that take place, the way that he is with the children and the way he's not necessarily showing up as I would have thought he would.
Can I just ask you, is it your child or whose child is it?
Yeah, my two children.
Your two children. How old are they?
11 and 15.
And he's the father of both of them?
He is.
And how long have you been together for? And how long have you been separated for?
We were together for just under 15 years and we've been separated 2.5 years now.
Right.
Betty, first of all, I want to applaud you. I've been a single mum, which I know is different to your experience. But hats off to navigating all of this change with two young children, because already that's a major feat. And I just want to say, Nick, the second thing I want to acknowledge is that what I heard you saying about your ex is that you are learning to see him in a different light. And I appreciate that, because for somebody who uses that sort of terminology, there's a willingness for you to connect, collaborate. I find learning, when people use the word learning, that's not an attack word. That's more of an inclusive word. So I wanted to acknowledge you, Betty.
Thank you.
Nick's stuck for words. No. For once in his life, he's stuck for words. I want to add something. The reason why we break up from our partners is not because we don't love our children. It's because we don't want to be in a relationship with our partners anymore. And it's a natural part of the process, wouldn't you say, Nick?
I would, but
to actually change the way you see your partners.
But your priority obviously is your children. Can I ask, who do the children live with? Do you share custody or do you have sole custody?
It's majority me, about 70% with me.
And generally, do your children have a good relationship with both of you, or do they have a preference?
It's tricky. There have been a lot of things that have come up in his house over the past 6 months that have caused lots of challenges for them.
Right. And are you talking to him about these challenges? Is there an open line of communication? I mean, do you both have the children's best interests at heart, or are the children being weaponized? Are they being used to punish you? What's the state of the relationship between the two of you in terms of the children?
It's difficult to say because I'm extremely open to co-parenting and talking about having maybe like a handover process once the children have been with him and they come back to me and vice versa. This has taken place, this is going on, etc. There was an incident recently where my eldest actually stole some money and I was disciplining him by confiscating his phone, and my ex decided to get him a new phone.
Right. So you've got...
we're on different pages.
Yeah. So your set of values is not being shared by him. Have you discussed these incidents with him, and have you tried to agree a protocol which will work in the children's best interests? Have you tried to say, look, theft is something surely as an ex-couple we agree cannot be tolerated. Is there a sort of a marcation of lines of agreement?
Yes. Well,
Have you tried that? Have you tried that?
I've tried many times, and that takes me back to the original thing that I said about actually where I'm at now. I'm having to learn that we're not on the same page, and it's potentially being more harmful to be against each other than to try and continue trying to get him to hear me and see my point of view, to a point where he actually, in this particular example, couldn't say the word stealing in the same context as speaking about our child.
Why is he behaving like this? Because obviously this wasn't the man that you lived with for all these years. He presumably had values, and you were in line with each other. You were of the same mind with these values. So why is he behaving like this now? Is it to capture the affection of the children, or is it to punish you? Is he trying to get the children to like him more than you?
I think that's a mute question. I think you're hypothesising about what somebody says. Betty, do you mind me cutting in?
Can Betty answer that?
Okay. Well, because we're looking into a magic ball, aren't we? We're looking into
I think it's relevant, isn't it?
What, to hypothesise why someone else is doing something who's not here and present?
Well, we're hearing what Betty's view is about his conduct, and we need to work out why he's behaving like that, and what Betty can do to solve it.
Okay.
How is she going to solve it? How are we going to reach an agreement that's going to... Basically, what we're concerned about, Betty, is what's in the children's best interests. No disrespect to you or your ex. All a court would ever be concerned about is, you don't want your kids growing up thinking it's all right to nick stuff, do you?
No, absolutely.
So is there a way of getting your partner to agree with values that are obviously common sense? Or does he think actually it's a good idea for the children to be told, we'll reward you if you steal? Because
the thing is, if you were to speak to him, he would say he shares the values, but his words don't meet his actions.
Right,
and this is something I have to continuously say to him. He tells the world he's there, he shows up for them with schooling and various things, and he doesn't. And what's become apparent is that I think there may be some bitterness because it was my choice to end the marriage. But actually, Nick, you just said about being when we were in the relationship and assuming that we were on the same page with things. Well, actually, the more I look back now, I realise that he just went along with a lot of things, but I'm not here to bash my ex at all, but he doesn't have a great deal of backbone, so he doesn't actually really seem to have any morals himself. So he goes along with whoever he's with at the time.
But presumably he loves his children and he wants the best for them. And would he not agree to let you take the lead role in that? And would he not, maybe his skill set is taking them to, I don't know, football or dancing or whatever activities. But when it comes to sort of discipline and values, maybe that's something that, you should be allowed to take the lead role.
And that's an ideal scenario, sharing roles and responsibilities whilst co-parenting.
Yeah, well, if it's achievable, is that achievable?
Yeah, he's quite happy to leave me to do almost everything, to be honest. But the problem is, if I'm implementing a discipline of something that is serious, and he doesn't see it through, that's very confusing for the child. And that's what I keep on trying to say to him, that actually we need to be consistent with our message to our children. But he I don't know what it is,
Betty,
but he just won't.
Betty, what I have learnt when I have my experience of being a single mum, and again I say I appreciate that your experience, your co-parenting is different from mine. But what I hear from you is that you have a situation where you're looking to interact with your child in one way, which is different from the way your partner's interacting. And for me, the decision is fair and reasonable that it is unreasonable to steal something. And in the absence of any sense from your co-parent, in a black and white scenario like that, Nick, you tell me if you would disagree. In a black and white scenario like that, I would have utter faith in myself to discipline my child and to run the risk of my child actually falling out with me.
No, absolutely.
And Pierce has said it to
100%.
me many times as I was
100%.
raising him, Mum, I don't like you. That's not fair. And my reply would be, sweetheart, I will always love you. Whatever you do, I will always love you. It is not my job to be your friend. I am here to guide you. And I would encourage you, Betty, to be consistent.
Yes. So when there's an incident of stealing, all you can do is re-emphasize the offence of stealing and the consequences, and however you get that message, convey that message. And the fact that your ex-husband, takes a different role is irrelevant. You've got to basically make sure your children understand what you say. And that's I think, all you can do, unless you go down a route which I wouldn't recommend, which is to go back to courts and say, look, this is really damaging. I want sole custody. He can have access, and you don't want to do that.
I would keep a note of it though.
But
I would keep a note of it, because something like this for me is quite serious.
I would strive strongly. I mean, it seems ridiculous when you say, look, your husband doesn't think it's wrong, your ex-husband doesn't think it's wrong. That can have a catastrophic effect on children's upbringing and their welfare. And maybe it's an idea to make sure the school is aware of what's going on.
That's a good point. That's a good idea.
So that there has to be consistency with children, and children need to understand simple messages. And they need to understand what is right and what is wrong. And there's no particular grey area there. So you're obviously conveying what is right. The school need to be aware and on side. And any episodes which contradict your values, they need to be dealt with, don't they? And you need to make sure your children understand, actually, Dad's wrong here, and I'll explain why it's wrong. And this is what's going to happen. And if you do this again, you're not going to watch Handy Pandy before you go to bed, or whatever it is. You understand? You're enforcing your judgment, and that ultimately is, I think, all you can do, as well as try and explain to your ex-husband, look, you're damaging the children. Do you want to do that?
And I would do that. I would have that conversation, Betty, in private, not in front of your children.
Absolutely not.
Never. Slag off.
No.
I've heard you saying you're not here to slag off your
You're
partner.
very measured, which is the right way to be.
Yeah, you're measured. That's the right way to be. So any conversation needs to be done away from your children.
Yeah.
With your partner.
I completely agree with Melissa, unusually on this point. But I think it's very important. I think it's very important that your children don't, under any circumstance, think that you're falling out with Dad about this. You're not slagging him off. You're on his side. It's never a good idea to slag off your ex. There's no positive that comes from that. What you're saying is, look, this is what I believe. This is why I believe it, and I really insist that this is the way we go forward. And that's how you do it, without personalising it in terms of slagging off your husband.
One of the worst things that my parents used to do is, one of them would say yes.
Divide and conquer.
And one of them would say no. And I always knew I could divide and conquer. And that is so unsettling for a child.
It's very bad for kids. They just want to know what's right, what's wrong, this is what's doing. Keep it nice and simple.
I know. Clear, I know.
And you take the higher ground, Betty. You take the higher ground. You be the collaborator. You be the connector.
But I would work on your ex-husband, and try and make him see the wood from the trees. And if that doesn't happen...
I'm hoping that almost by just leaving him to it for a little while, he might be able to reflect and see things for himself without me, because his perception of me is that I'm still like a nagging wife, which is not my intention at all. But when there are clear things taking place, because this stealing incident actually escalated where my son wouldn't apologise to me, and I actually said, after a couple of days of this going on and him being really nasty for a few days at home, because he knew he'd done something wrong, and it was his way of responding to the situation, I actually said, you need to move out. I said, I can't have you in the house when you can't be honest with me and you can't even give me an apology for what you've done. And he moved in with his dad for a few days. And during that time, I had my ex, my mum, other people saying, what are you doing? You're going to lose him forever. You're going to lose your son, blah, blah. And I said, I'm sticking to my guns, because if I give in now, he will think that behaviour is okay. So I just had to ride it out, as painful as it was, until he came to me when he was ready about I think it was about a week later.
Yeah, realised.
And he sat down and came and gave me a proper apology, a real, this
Heartfelt
is what
one.
was going on. This is where I was at. Yes. And that's what I was waiting for.
Excellent,
Yeah,
Betty.
well, that's perfect,
Boundaries.
isn't it? That's perfect.
Yeah,
And
that's
he'll know that
inspiring.
you're not a soft touch, and he'll know that ultimately you're prepared to make very, very hard decisions. So he'll respect you massively because of that, which is important.
So.
And definitely. You've just got to be consistent and just do the right thing. And as Melissa says, we're not supposed to be friends with our kids. We're supposed to give them the best guidance we possibly can until they leave the nest. That's it. And hopefully one day they'll respect us for it and they'll accept that. And if they don't, well, you've done your best.
Thank you, Betty.
Thank you so much.
Oh, bless you. Have a good day and good luck co-parenting.
Can I just say, don't ever compromise your values to try and earn the affections of your children, because it will turn around and bite you.
Yeah,
Okay?
I agree.
All
Thanks
right.
so much.
Nice talking to you, Betty.
Bye, Betty.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye. Well,
That's an interesting one. That's an
Yeah,
interesting one.
yeah, it is.
I'm fascinated about punishment. For me, the boundary is important, but actually suggesting that in a co-parenting situation, the child goes to another person's house, I possibly would have suggested something different.
Can you imagine, this is a lady dealing with presumably an adolescent 15-year-old boy who's been caught with his hand in the till, who's being very defensive and very aggressive. You want to say he needs a dad there to sort him out, because there comes a stage in a boy's life when they're very truculent that it's very hard for the mother to deal with it. I'm not saying that in a sort of chauvinistic way. I just think that the boy will probably respect a dominant male saying, actually, that isn't going to happen. You stop right there. You hand it back. You apologise. When it's...
That's not just the domain of a man,
No,
FYI.
it isn't.
That is the domain of a human that has alpha qualities,
Yep, I agree.
leadership qualities,
100%,
boundaries,
100%.
able to assert
But I
themselves,
think-
and that is
I agree, but I think there's a
able
recognition...
to be achieved by a woman.
Of course it is, but I think it's more challenging. I think it's much more difficult.
I'm sure you do.
For
a woman.
If you'd like to be part of our show, please do send us an email to admin@melissaportercoach.com.